This is Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. We're joined by regular Newsmax contributor, political analyst, columnist, and best-selling author Dick Morris. Hi, Dick.
Hey, Ashley. Good to be here.
Good to have you. White House spokesman Robert Gibbs predicts House passage of the Senate healthcare reform bill this week. Will it happen, Dick? Do the Democrats have the votes to do it?
Right now, they don't. Fighting Nancy Pelosi in the House is a tough order. You know, Winston Churchill once likened to fighting Japan on the land of Asia to going into the water to fight the shark. And when you fight the Speaker in the House of Representatives floor, that's what you're doing. She has such control over the members' fortunes, and there is such a group think, caucus think among Democrats in the House. It is very, very hard to defeat them when they have a 39-vote majority. But we have a good shot at it. At the moment, we're slightly ahead of them. We've gotten, there are 3 or 4 yes votes that are no longer there, one through death and one through resignation and one through Republican switching. There are at least 2 other yes votes that have definitely gone over to no. We have about 30 yes votes that are undecided. On the other hand, we have about 10 no votes that are now listed as undecided, some of which we may lose because they're retiring, so they don't care what the voters think. And before, when they voted no, they thought they were going to run for re-election. So it's going to be very close, and it really depends on the Newsmax viewers who are watching this. If we get enough phone calls to these marginal members, and the League of American Voters gets enough funding to run advertisements in their districts promoting those phone calls, I believe we can win this fight. If we're complacent and we think we got it won with Scott Brown's victory and people don't pay attention, or the money and the calls come too late, then we might lose it. It really depends very much on the people watching this video. It's why I'm doing it.
Republican leaders, including Senator Mitch McConnell, predict there will be no reconciliation if the House rubber stamps the Senate bill. Specifically, there will be no Bart Stupak language banning taxpayer-funded abortions. Your prediction, Dick?
Oh, I think absolutely that bill will never pass the Senate, unless the Republicans pass it. I mean, if you have 41 Republicans voting for a pro-life amendment, they probably can scrape up 10 or 11 Democrats and get it 51 votes, and it'll pass. But I would think that the Republicans would refuse to fix the problem and let the Democrats stew in their own juices. I don't think you'd find more than 10 or 15 Democrats who would vote for the Stupak amendment in the Senate. What are you going to have, Barbara Boxer and Mikulski and Debbie Stabenow and radicals like that are going to vote for a pro-life amendment that excludes the use of public funds for abortion? Not in your wildest dreams. So if any of the Stupak Democrats in the House are dumb enough to think that they can vote for this bill and rely on the Senate to fix it from their point of view, they just were born yesterday.
If this thing goes back to the Senate and the Democrats make good on their threat to circumvent Republican filibusters, can the GOP stop it on procedural challenges?
No. Once this passes the House, it's as good as law. This is the fight in the chamber and the day. And we're either going to be successful or lose in the next 7 days. And once we lose, if we do lose, you're never going to get this thing repealed because you'll never have a 2/3 majority of Republicans to overcome Obama's veto. I think the Republicans will take Congress in 11, but with a simple majority, that's not going to be enough. We have got to win this fight this week. And the chips are down. It's the people against Pelosi. And you can have a big impact on this. Go to dickmorris.com. Look at the list of Democratic congressmen who are on the fence. Their phone numbers are right there. Call both their Washington and their district office and click on the link and give us money to run ads in each of their districts, urging the voters to call them to get them to vote no. If we keep up the pressure, we can put a withering fire down that will stop these folks from voting yes. And then Pelosi will lose control of the House. She'll never get another major bill passed.
Will the Democrats be breaking Senate rules if they try to pass non-budgetary items like mandatory insurance purchases through reconciliation?
I think they will, but the Democrats have a majority to sustain the rulings of the chair, and the chair is Vice President Biden. So I think it'll be an ugly spectacle. I think the country will be revolted. I think they'll suffer for it in the November elections, but don't put your hopes on it on stopping health care. We have one chance to kill this Obama bill, and that's going to be on the House floor later this week.
Latest reports say most of those special Senate deals, such as Mary Landrieu's Louisiana Purchase, Bill Nelson's Gatorade, Chris Dodds' Special Hospital, and Ben Nelson's Cornhusker Kickback that the White House wanted out of the bill are staying in. What's up with that?
Well, they're in the Senate version that the House is going to pass, and they may try to take it out in the Senate reconciliation. But I doubt it, because if the Republicans don't help the Democrats, they're going to need the votes of Ben Nelson and Mary Landrieu and Chris Dodd and all of those folks to go down the line in supporting the various reconciliation measures. And I don't think they'll want to if their own favors are taken away from them.
All right, speaking of Senator Dodd, he's just released his financial overhaul legislation. It has no Republican support. Now, Dick, is this the legislation you've been worried about?
Yes, exactly. All of the attention is focused on how much power the Fed will have to regulate small banks and what the consumer office will be able to do. And those are important provisions, but they're not the most important. The most important provision in this bill, which is the opening to socialism in America, it might be the most wrong-headed piece of legislation that has ever been passed by the United States Congress. It would give the Secretary of the Treasury the power to take over any financial firm he wanted. If in his sole judgment he thinks it's A, too big to fail, that is, its failure would have a ripple effect on the economy, and secondly, that in his judgment, it's on the borderline of insolvency. Not appealable in court. And once he makes that determination, he then has the power to replace the management, fire the board of directors, sell off parts of the company, and wipe out shareholder equity. It absolutely are powers that Fidel Castro would envy.
All right, turning to another topic, the escalating drug violence along the Mexican border with Texas. Now, this past weekend alone, 3 people with ties to the American consulate were gunned down in Juarez. Nearly 50 were killed altogether, including 9 killed in a gang shootout in the resort town of Acapulco. Dick, what should Mexican President Felipe Calderon do to stop the violence?
Well, look, let's understand that this is not a question of stopping the violence. It's a question of winning the war. This is a war. It's a war of Mexico against the drug dealers for control of the country. And the army is on one side and the drug dealers are on the other. The army, by the way, is relatively honest. They've all had to take lie detector tests and drug tests. But it's a war. And to say stop the fighting, stop the violence, is a little bit like saying stop the violence on the Normandy beaches at D-Day. It isn't a question of stopping it, it's a question of winning it. You know, Calderon once said, Bush can pull out of Iraq, but how do I pull out of Mexico? If the government stops this fight, if the government gives in to these drug dealers and thugs, they are essentially making Mexico a drug state. And believe me, the United States of America does not want a 1,500-mile border with a drug state.
All right, there were a record 2,000 murders in Juarez during 2009. That makes it the most violent zone in the world outside of war zones. There were executions in broad daylight. Teenage girls vanished without a trace. Dick, is Mexican law enforcement powerless to stop this?
No, it's a fight. It's a war. It is a war zone. That's the point, Ashley. They've made enormous progress in wiping out a lot of the drug cartels. Every time they arrest a big drug kingpin, you know, they send him to the United States for trial. We don't even have to extradite him. They send him right away because they don't want him in a Mexican jail before a corrupt Mexican judge. They want him in a U.S. jail before an honest U.S. judge. And this country is fighting as valiantly as it can against these drug lords and trying to retake control of their cities. The escalating violence is a symptom of their aggressiveness in prosecuting the war, not of their failure in stopping the violence. This isn't a police matter. This is a war.
All right, if you were advising President Calderon as you advised President Clinton, what would you tell him to do?
Win the war. Do what it takes. Stay the course and win it. This is an issue where there is no substitute for victory. You either win it or you turn your country over to these guys.
Dick Morris, as always, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us here at Newsmax.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Sarah Palin's new book, Going Rogue in American Life, will be released on November 17th. You can be among the first to get your copy. Check out our incredible free offer for Sarah's new book. Just go to Newsmax.com and click on the top banner for this great offer. Act today.